Good morning, fans. Welcome. It is 10:30 a.m. Central. I'm here with James Hayden, Coach Dub. We rewatched the game from last night, and we are going to talk about, of course, ULM, what we saw there, Arch Manning, all that kind of stuff. We're also going to kind of just look back at non-conference. What did we learn overall? How can we project that for the SEC? Because it's about to get a lot harder. This has been a fairly relaxing non-conference slate. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, y'all. We're trying to get to that 10K. And use promo code IT1 to get 2 months of Inside Texas for $1 single. Heck of a deal. And if you guys are watching the post game last night, Eric is very bullish on a lot of flips. So you're going to want to be tuned in for the latest recruiting stuff. There's about to be a lot of fireworks if those things, Texas keeps piling up the wins. All right, fellas. First things first, we'll kind of structure it so we're not just saying like, well, I like this, I like this, I like this. We'll kind of keep it in. We'll talk about quarterbacks first, right?
Yeah.
So Arch Manning, Quinn Ewers, I have some stats for you. I'll give it in a second. But kind of what were the initial impressions of Arch's performance yesterday? I think luckily he was able to kind of come back to earth. Yeah. I also appreciated, do you guys see Quinn just like hyping the whole team up like he was leading them into battle? Quinn's a different thing right now. And I think we finally got to realize that. We knew that, but the wider fans. So I thought Arch looked human. Kind of what were your impressions, James? Let's hit you first, man.
Well, I was at the game, and then the first thing I noticed, it was something we talked about last week, and maybe the average fan wasn't paying attention to because they saw 5 TDs. Is the timing is just it's not quite there. And we were talking to Coach before the show went live. Like he's making read, the first read, and then it's either all right, I'm running the ball, and Coach Dub said like, yeah, it's like NCAA 25. Like that's pretty much exactly how my brain works when I'm playing my brother in NCAA. It's either all right, we're going deep, oh that's not open, we're scrambling. So it was kind of just, I think, illuminating to maybe the average fan, because I was talking to some fans pregame, and people were like, "Oh, this is going to help Arch's Heisman." I'm like, "Arch's Heisman? Like, is that what we're talking about here?"
Yeah.
But I think it kind of let us know, like, all right, this is how good Quinn really is, and we're seeing like, all right, this is where Quinn kind of was when he came in 2022, and I think Arch, and like you said, humbling was a good word, because it'll help him realize, oh, he's human, he's still got a lot to learn. Peyton was there at the game. So I think it was a good all-in-all experience for Arch. His timing's not quite there yet. I mean, he still kind of looks like, a newbie quarterback is what you expect.
Yep. Coach.
Hey, you know what? Kind of some of the similar things that you just said. I thought kind of come back down to earth because, he comes in the game as a backup and he goes off against UTSA, and the chatter and the hype and everything is just steady building, right? And then I think this game you find out, okay, he's human. He can make mistakes, right? He can hold on to the ball a little too long and kind of force it into double, triple coverage, even though some of those balls in double coverage are still on the money.
Yeah.
He's a young guy.
Away with a few because he's so accurate down
here. Yeah, and I think he's like, I got the deep ball. I'm gonna throw this thing, right? I got my opportunity. I'm letting it go. And I think that's a young quarterback, but at least he's not shy to let it go. Some quarterbacks are too shy to even let it go. And so he has a ton of confidence. I think he just has to learn that, hey, the check down could be his friend too. I think that's something I wrote about, what I wanted to see from him on Friday. Like, hey, I want to see him take the check down. It's okay. Dump it out to your running back or dump it out into the flats. Let your athletes make plays. And I think he'll learn that as he goes, but I think we also learned that, hey, this is Quinn's team, and Arch has a lot of room to grow. He's really, really good, but he has a lot of room to grow. And then he got room for Sark to actually coach him, right? And I think that's the good thing. He's going to be even better as he goes. But yeah, man, I was okay with his performance. First time starting, it's just like Quinn start. I think you posted some numbers. The numbers look the same when Quinn played ULM his first game, right?
It's the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought he had a good performance. Just little things to learn, right?
Yeah, I thought it was fair. And if you remember, like Quinn versus Oklahoma State, right? He would just spam Worthy.
Yeah.
And the reason why you're seeing all these deep shots is because your deepest throw is normally your first read. So he's just, and I don't blame him, man. If I see Wingo up on somebody, I'm like, I don't care. I'm throwing it to Wingo, So it's just, this is young guy stuff. He's going to figure it out. He's too bright, but this is similar to Quinn. I guess, before I could really see this staff's development, now I don't question him. But I was worried about Quinn the year one. I was like, oof, some of these decisions are sketchy. And now I see it. It's like, okay, he's gonna be fine. And next year Arch is gonna be dealing. And then if he stays for the year after that, then it's gonna be even more scary. I did see Arch gave himself a C+. And we're at the point now where the quarterback can grade himself at a C+. We still win 51-3.
Yeah.
So that's a different thing we're dealing with here. The adversity was good for Arch. Lots of teach tape. Absolutely, I agree.
Agreed.
Nino's corner.
What's going on, Nino's?
What's up, man? I expect you took the long shots because he could. Yeah, I mean that's what with this wide receiving core. Why not? And like Coach said, he threw it in the triple coverage. Was that on the post?
It wasn't a post.
Yeah, he threw it in a triple cover on the post. It still almost hit his receivers right in the hand, which is not a good lesson to learn, by the way. So let's see. UT Parking, you nailed it. Old style football. Jameson has a good review on Arch, still in progress. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Horns looking good. Keep those horns all the way up. He threw into coverage a few too many times, and he needs to hone the pass to Blue. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he a little too came in a little too hot on that interception to Blue.
Yeah.
So I have some numbers for you guys here. Same numbers. I'll compare Arch and Quinn, and you can kind of see the difference here. Now, Arch is still really good. Just Quinn's in a different tier, right? So Arch Manning, 61% completion rate. This is through all the games. 61%. That's 13th of 21 SEC quarterbacks. Quinn Ewers, 73%. That's 3rd of 21 SEC quarterbacks. 12.3 yards per attempt. Now, this can be higher because Arch is spamming the deep ball. So 12.3 yards per attempt, really good. 2nd in the SEC for Arch. For Quinn, 8.7 yards per attempt, 10th. So still above average. Now, this is where you see the difference. Average depth of target. So how deep is the receiver on the field when he throws it usually?
Yeah.
Arch is at 12.6 yards average depth of target. That's 2nd in the SEC. The only higher than that is Peyton Thorne, which is you don't want to be in that company there.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn's average depth of target is 2nd to last, 6.2. So Quinn and Arch are different things right now.
Yeah.
Quinn is really short throws, yak, quick decision making, knows what he's looking at pre-snap, command, right?
Yeah.
Arch is a different thing. Arch is YOLO ball, hero ball, Ryan Wing goes down there.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was Quinn 2 years ago too with Worthy. So I think you're always going to see that Arch is going to take more risk than Quinn. I do think Quinn is more risk averse naturally, but you're not going to see Arch, you know, just throwing it to throw it either in these next couple of years.
Yeah.
So, but NFL rating, Arch is 4th because they prioritize the deep shots, and Quinn is 5th. So Quinn is your starting quarterback. He's performing better, kind of period. And but man, future is bright with Arch's natural throwing ability is pretty crazy.
Man,
I noticed same thing. I noticed Quinn and Arch's against ULM first start for both was comparable.
Yeah, it definitely was.
And then let's talk running game. New name stood out for me, Colin Page.
Page.
Preferred walk on and ran like his hair was on fire. Reminded me of Christian McCaffrey, 6 foot, 210 pounds. I don't know about Christian McCaffrey there, but yeah, Colin Page is running hard. You know,
yeah, he's running hard.
We were talking about the running game before not being elite. Maybe it's Colin Page's time to turn it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking at conference, I was talking before we came on. I feel like the run game is the only question we have on offense, and it's still not like a crazy question. We're just kind of having to say what's the weakest component of the offense right now.
Yeah,
it's the run game. How are you guys feeling about the run game through 4 games? Have you guys noticed that, hey, we're kind of lacking a little bit there? Especially, I mean, we're used to Bijan, Rojo, and Jonathan Brooks. So maybe we're just kind of coming back to earth. But, Coach, what do you think?
Yeah, man, I think the running game is a work in progress. And don't get it wrong. Don't get me wrong. Like, we're still running for over 100 yards. And all running backs are having production. You see Blue went off last night, over 100 yards, 4 touchdowns. But I think we're missing – everybody wants to see the long, explosive runs, breaking a couple of tackles and going 60 yards to the house, 50 yards to the house. And it's like, maybe this running game will get there. But we can kind of substitute that with the short passing game, with the quick screens and all that, so which is an extension of the run game. So I'm not too worried about it as far as the big explosive runs. I just want more consistency, more positive runs, especially when we get deep in the SEC play, right, where teams are really, really good at stopping the run. I want to see how consistent we are on short yardage or first down. So I don't want to see a lot of 2nd and 10s because we didn't get any yards on the initial play running the ball. So it's not too much of a worry. I do want to see more consistency, and I think as we go on, Blue will get the bulk of carries, maybe like he did last night. Then you kind of throw in Baby Rhino for short yardage. I think they'll mix and match, and we'll see how it goes. I think they're just feeling their way out because you haven't leaned on anybody and just say I'm gonna run the ball, right? Because you've got so many weapons, you got to feed everybody the football. So let's see when somebody maybe takes away the pass, how successful we are with running the football, and then I can kind of judge it better. So we'll see as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with kind of what he's saying. Is we haven't seen enough to be like, can they not do it when it matters most? Because we've been able to move the ball when we need to, like Homer was talking about. People kind of get used to Bijan's, dynamic shiftiness, that run against OU. But hey, Bijan's team went 8-5, right? So it's like the one thing we can't do is run the ball, and everything else is fine. But we can do it when we need to. If there's no breakout runs, like we're having guys, like Blue run for 5 yards a carry. But hey, last night that was efficient, that was effective. He had 4 total TDs, like ran for over 100 yards. It might just be a little more grinded out, getting the yards we need, and less flash and less, big breakout runs. But that's fine for now. We'll see, can they run for 4 to 5 yards a carry against, when Georgia comes in town, against Oklahoma's defense. That's the kind of stuff we're going to want to see. You could still have an effective run game without having a guy average 7 yards a carry. So
yeah, and like Coach said, if you can dump it off to Isaiah Bond and he can go for 50, okay.
Yeah.
'cause you're still testing them on the perimeter. You're still doing all that kind of stuff. So we'll look at this real quick here. So this is the run game right here on this little section. So rushing attempts per game, 30th in the country. Yards per rush, 49th in the country, 4.8. Not bad, a little bit above average. Rushing yards per game, I don't really care about that, but I do track it. 36 in the country. Rushing success rate, how consistent are we, right? How often are we gaining ground and not getting stopped? Pretty good, 32nd. Last year was kind of the inverse. Last year, we were really inconsistent, but Jonathan Brooks would go for 60, and they would cancel out our inconsistency. This year, we've kind of flipped. So we're more efficient, we're more successful, but we're struggling with the explosive play. Offensive line yards, it's kind of similar to last year. It's not a great run blocking team. And frankly, I don't feel like it's been a great run blocking team in any of the 4 years. It's just for whatever reason, this is a pass blocking offensive line. So what is good, though, this was really bad last year, like bottom 10 in the nation. Rushing power success rate, all that means is 3rd and 2, 4th and 1. That kind of you got to have it yards.
Yeah.
We're above average there. That's important. Remember when we would get stalemated on the goal line?
Yeah.
All that stuff last year.
Efficiency was horrible last year.
That's power success rate. And so we've improved there a lot, what's important. And then, like we said, rushing explosivity on 107th. Sark in his press conference even said that he wanted his running backs to make safeties miss, not try to run through their chest. Because we do have this tendency, especially Gibson. Gibson wants to hit guys. So, like, he could try to put a juke on, and he doesn't. He'd prefer to just run straight through you. And yeah, I think you're 100% right. Red zone has been the difference this year. Yeah. And it's just touchdown after touchdown. That was awful for us last year. Totally changed the game. I think right now in red zone, we're 36, but that's because people tie because it's all similar numbers. So, but we're awesome. I mean, look at these guys. I mean, this is our offense. Everything is green besides offensive line yards and rushing explosivity. So when I'm saying we're nitpicking, we literally are because everything is awesome. I'm just looking for what's red on this thing, And most teams look like a Christmas tree. It's green and red all over the place, or it's all red. So this is a special team. So we are nitpicking. But like we said, if these are kind of issues versus ULM, this non-conference slate, it's going to be an issue versus Georgia. These things don't so that's kind of, unless Sark does one of his crazy scheme jobs, which is also possible. But
definitely.
So that's the run game. I feel really confident there. Receivers, pass game. Man. We're good. We're good at passing the ball, guys.
Yeah, definitely.
And we're not even overpassing, 54th in the nation there. Yards per pass, 13th in the country. If you care about passing yards per game, 12th in the country. Passing success rate, how efficient we are. If we want to do it, can we do it? 15th in the country. Passing explosivity, 22nd in the country.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of looked at our receivers as well, and we'll talk about this. So, only 2 of them have enough targets to actually get graded with the rest of the SEC because we're rotating so much. So, our first graded is Bond. He's 7th out of 37 SEC receivers. He's our leading guy in yards as well. Yeah. Golden is 18th. These are their overall grades. 18th of 37. He's tied for the most TDs with us with 3. But whenever I just put all of our receivers in there, I don't care about targets. Ryan Wingo is our highest graded. He has the best yards per reception. And Jonte Cook, it goes Ryan Wingo, Bond, Golden, Cook. and Cook has the best reception rate. He's catching 87% of things thrown at him.
Man.
So,
Cook.
Yeah, Cook. So, how you guys feeling about the passing game beyond I like it a lot?
No, look, the passing game it's explosive and it's efficient. Anytime, and one thing I talk about with the receivers, I kind of mention every week, it's the yards after catch. Like, dude, they're making people miss. They're running through tackles, arm tackles. When you can do that, man, it makes you a very, very hard team to stop. Right?
Yeah.
You got to stop them third and maybe long. But we break a tackle and then we get a first down, right? Those are back breaking plays. And these receivers, man, you can tell is really, really taught and coached. Like, hey, first man can't bring you down, right? And they're fighting through it. This passing game it's more than you can even ask for, right? But then to take the deep shots, right? We get the deep ball going. Like, everybody wants to see the deep ball, but we're doing a great job of completing the deep ball, especially when Arch comes in. I know Quinn is not taking as many deep shots, but he hasn't really needed to. I feel good. We can pass at every level, short, intermediate, or deep ball, man. And it's really hard to stop because you can't say, oh, I'm just going to play deep. We'll kill you underneath. Right? If you come up, we're going to go by you. Like, what? How do you stop the passing attack, right? You know what I mean? Like,
I was thinking about that last night. I'm like, how do you actually defend and try to beat the Texas Longhorns?
Yeah, I mean, through the air, it's like, to supplement some of that run game explosivity, we can swing it out to a Wingo or a Bond. And even, yesterday we saw Cyrus Bolden get into the mix, finally getting his touches. I know it's been a little difficult for him. He should have had another catch. I mean, I don't know if people saw that. I think he had his hands under that one. But it was nice to see him getting touches. It's just a lot of speed. And like Coach Dub said, it's like breaking tackles. Like, I see Bond fighting for extra yards. I think he's probably our best all-around receiver, like complete with yards after catch, hands in terms of route running and whatnot. But then Wingo is so explosive. Like, Wingo – that guy, yeah, he's gonna be here for 3 seasons. I think that's a lot. Like, I'm shocked at how good he already is. I know that with the 5-star rating, but like, I didn't think he would be top 3 in receiving yards on the team. But like, he is so explosive. And yeah, yards after catch is crazy. These guys can move. It's so fast. And like you guys said, like, we can hit him at all 3 levels. So where can you really like constrict this passing game?
Yes. Well, and the best part is Quinn is disciplined now.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever it is over the top and they're playing way back, Quinn will take the under stuff now, opposed to trying to throw the deep ball.
What was that stat you said earlier comparing Arch and Quinn's?
Yeah, average depth of target.
Yeah, Quinn has no problem taking the short one now. I think it's like 6.5 yards average depth or something.
Yeah, 6.2
reads. Yeah, he's making the smart reads every single time.
Yeah, Quinn has average depth of target 6.2 yards, 21st out of I think 22 SEC quarterbacks, and then time to throw 2.28 seconds, 20th. So bottom tier in short throwing and then bottom tier in time to throw. So he's pre-snap. I got Bond here. Remember Sark always talks about like when a pivotal moment in his learning the quarterback position was at BYU where he was like, oh, I can just throw it. I'm not an athlete, but I can just throw it to athletes and they're going to make me look awesome. And coaches generally prize what they played like. And so that's what Quinn's kind of realized too. He's like, why am I trying to be Mr. Hero when I can throw it to Bond and he's going to go for 50?
Exactly.
And then you guys asked about Helm. Out of tight ends right now, overall grade is 7th of 19 SEC tight ends. But that's overall grade. I have to look at his yards per reception. You guys know my breakdowns. I give you the overall grade at the end just so you have context. But really what I'm looking at is like yards per reception. I'm interested in the actual performance stats. The grades I just try to throw in to help people kind of get the holistic picture, but I'm not a huge fan of the grades as like the end all be all.
All right, John Helm, best tight end in the country. I'm gonna stand on that hill. I don't care.
Yeah, 7th in the SEC seems a little low for how he's been playing.
Yeah, and they can be right. And I can try to pull for you too. Let me see. Tight end. Let's see his kind of like basic stuff here.
We saw Juan Davis getting in early yesterday too.
Yeah,
Juan Davis. Yeah, I'm ready for him to kind of do his thing. All right, let's see. Reception percentage. Gunnar Helm is second in the SEC, catching 91%. Yards, Gunnar Helm is third. Yards per reception, he is second. It was 17.9. And then I think he's tied with like half or 3/4 of the league with 1 touchdown. So that's him getting dinged on Yeah, he's 7th in Rec V, which is basically like their route running kind of receiver grade. And it can also be like, if you're in there for a lot of snaps, but you only get a few catches, that you're going to get dinged. You need to be impactful kind of all the time.
Yep.
And that's where they can kind of get you. But yeah, I look at the individual stats for Gunnar Helm. I don't think he's 7th overall. I think he's top 2 at least.
Yeah.
Bolden has juice. He needs more targets. I want that for Bolden. You can tell, man. He's like, he wants to prove himself, and we should let him. But man, you got to chill on those punt returns. Dude. Because that's the scary stuff, right? Tight game versus Georgia. That's when that pops up.
Right.
Well, man, Michigan and against Alabama in the Rose Bowl had so many errors like that. And it's just, I mean, those things they still escaped, but that's kind of stuff we could see be a problem later in the season, not in the non-conference.
Yeah, people are like, who cares? We won versus ULM. It's like, we're not talking about ULM. We're talking about Georgia. We're talking about good teams down the road. Yeah, you can get away with a lot versus ULM, but down the
we respect the general duty, of course.
Yeah, that was tough, man. They had to pass more than they wanted to. Of course, though, right? They're a heavy run offense. They're not going to be able to run on us, so they're always going to be behind the sticks. I don't know what you do there. I mean, as a coach, I guess you just run your offense, but it's like they never stood a chance. That play style doesn't stand a chance either. Like the only way you could do with Texas would be like normally short passing. We're locking that down. So really, you don't stand a chance in general, but you're especially not going to be able to pound it. But they did. I thought they put together a couple of solid drives.
They did.
And came into our territory. They weren't able to do much with them. But there was a couple times where I was like, I don't like that they're stringing together 8 plays, There was a couple times there, but we have to see. All right, fellas. That was most offense. We'll get into offensive line next, but first, a word from our wonderful sponsor, Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Don't you dare let that insurance company tell you what your claim is worth. Don't you dare. Don't even think about it. All right, guys. Offensive line. Coach, you always have good insight here with the big boys. The tight ends and the big boys is where I always like your analysis. How are you feeling? Let me give you some grades first so I don't immediately cancel out anything you say. You're like, I think they're good. And it's like PFF hates them. But let's see. So run game, our highest graded run blocker is Kelvin Banks. Like I said, we're not a great run blocking group. Right. 17th out of 102 SEC run blockers. Okay. Cam Williams, 38th. Jake Majors, 57th. Campbell, 63rd. Connor, 83rd. So 2 guys in the top half, no top 10 run blockers. Not great as a run blocking unit. Flip side, in the pass, everyone besides one is top 25. So Banks is 6th. Connor is 14th. Cam Williams is 20th. Campbell is 22nd. Majors is 26th. So awesome. And as far as O-line pass blocking efficiency, how many times have bad things happened out of your pass blocks? Texas is number 1 in the SEC. Giving up 1 sack, 4 hits, 7 hurries. So elite pass blocking line, not an elite run blocking line. So, Coach, take it away from there.
Yeah, and the numbers add up what I kind of see on film, honestly. And run blocking, I saw it a few times last night. They were kind of pointing and saying, hey, I thought you had this guy, right? The communication level between run blocking and pass blocking is like night and day sometimes watching them play. Pass, when it comes to a pass, they're communicating. They know who they're passing off guys. But sometimes in the running game, hey, we're double teaming to the backer. It's like, hey, it's me. I'm going up to the second level. Well, I thought it was me. And it's like just consistency with those things. I think as you go on throughout the season, I think maybe it gets better. They get in the field room, right? You always got something to fix. You always got something to coach. You're not going to be perfect across the board and everything. And I think the running game just needs to be more consistent with communication on who has who. I think I just saw it in a few games on just the communication on who's blocking who and things like that. So I think they'll get better as the season goes on. The more you put it on film, I think it's been so much emphasis on protecting the quarterback and pass passing situations that you can tell that's where the focus was, and they're doing really, really excellent, and the numbers match up to it. And I think the run game just needs to kind of get a little better, just get more consistency. And I think that just comes with time. You get in the red zone, I see those guys kind of bulk up and get like, hey, I'm finna bully ball you, right? If you have that same mentality you take in the red zone and open field, I think you'll see more success in the run. I think you'll see higher grades as you go. But I think it's just more consistency and better communication up front is exactly what they need, because every game is always like, I'm seeing miscommunication and not knowing who has who. But other than that, I think they'll get better. So it's fourth game of the season, man. You got a long way to go. They'll get better.
Well, Coach, so like as a fan, when they see everyone hears about Texas's offensive line or LSU's offensive line going into the season, what makes a O-line unit like Texas good at pass block, but not like they can't seem to figure it out or be elite at the same level when it comes to run block?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to pass blocking, you got body types, right? I think those guys can move in space. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just don't have the power to move guys in the run game like you would want, right? And sometimes it's about will, sometimes it's about heart, sometimes it's about brute strength. And it depends on how the defense is playing you, right? If the defensive lineman is doing a great job of kind of squatting, maybe splitting a double team or creating a pile, you really can't get any movement to the second level. And I'm seeing a lot of guys that we played, they understand, hey, I'm about to get double teamed. So they kind of fall down and create a pile, and it stops you from getting to the second level. So a lot of guys have had good run fits versus us. You haven't seen too many. You've seen holes open here and there, but you haven't seen consistent holes open up. I think the defenses we have played, and give them some credit, they've made some plays, but I think it's almost a mentality like, I'm about to run this football. Like I said, they have it in the red zone, but open field, it seems like they don't have the same bully ball mentality in the open field when it comes to run blocking. I think that's just an individual thing. I've always said that it's Texas versus Texas. Look, the man in the mirror has to look themselves in the mirror and say, hey, I'm running this ball. There's nothing you can do about it, right? I'm coming your way, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just a mentality thing when it comes to the run game. So it just has to be more consistent, right? As the season goes on, maybe it starts in practice too. Like maybe I know Tuesdays are the most physical days in practice. Let's get an inside run and let's just run, because I'm sure they've been more game plan specific throughout practice leading up. You had Michigan, and you got Oklahoma and Georgia to prepare for it. But I think that Sark is a smart coach. He'll go back and say, hey, we're going to have 2 periods of inside run where we're going to work on the run only. And I think that'll help kind of improve it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a cultural thing too, right? If like you're Michigan and all they're preaching 24/7 is like, you need to grind it out. We're going to be that kind of thing. I mean, Texas is like Kelvin Banks, that's a pass blocker. It's like we have a little bit more finessey guys, and I think our focus too is more in the pass. And like we said, situationally, rushing power success rate 55th, so we're doing all right there. We're grinding it out whenever we want to, but like Coach said, middle of the field, not in love with it. And them not being able to create those big gaps might be a reason for our lack of rushing explosivity as well. So that's kind of the lowdown on the offensive line, which is going to be good, but can they get better? One thing that does kind of make me nervous, right? You're seeing miscommunication issues. Like all these guys have played significant reps with each other minus Cam, and so it's like, well, I don't want to. I mean, if we're having communication issues on climbing to a linebacker on inside zone versus a 4 down,
right,
with this senior of a offensive line, I mean, come on, it's like we should know how to climb to a linebacker in that situation. I don't even know what plays you're talking about specifically, but if it was that kind of basic level blocking that we're still having to hammer out, that's a little frustrating.
Yeah, it was just a tackle for loss, and I thought Majors kind of look around like, dude, that was my guy. Like, where are you going? And so it's just those. But
yeah. Okay, cool. So not too like basic concepts. All right, and then kind of looking situationally, 15th in the country on 3rd down. That's huge, guys. I can't stress that enough. 59 on 4th down, 36 in red zone, and then the other one's just returning production. We don't care about that. But OFEI, well, this is the 5th best offense in the country right now, putting everything together. And that's, I believe, opponent adjusted, meaning that they are factoring in the level of our competition. So pretty impressive stuff. This is just a really good football team.
That it is.
There's really no way around it. It will be interesting to see what's going to happen going into conference, if we still see that level of wide receiver rotation, that kind of stuff. But it'll be interesting. All right. Anything that we missed on the offense, chat, or you guys that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think there's much to talk about offensive. Like, we've covered all three levels: O-line, quarterback play, running backs, and receivers, and even tight end. So I'm excited to see us going into maybe SEC play the second week after Mississippi State. After Mississippi State game. You know what I mean? Being honest.
Yeah.
It bummed me out, man. I spent all this time on the Blake Shapen breakdown because this is the year 3 of breaking down Shapen. So I have like good insights.
They were great.
Yeah. So it's like I really know Shapen's game, you know. Yeah. So I spent it would be a good 4 minutes of the breakdown that I wrote of Shapen, really trying to give you a good insight to what I think he's good at and not good at, and then he gets hurt and he's out for this.
Yeah. Well, lucky for him. I mean, he'll get another year of eligibility.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be a little bit better next year.
Yeah. I mean, he's not bad. He's not a bad quarterback.
No, he's good because going to Baylor, like people crapped on him a lot on those bad teams, like after the Sugar Bowl year, and it was not his fault at all.
He's just. There's one problem is he's the opposite of clutch.
Yeah.
So like he knows what he's looking at. He does a good job to move the offense, but like if it's 4th down and you need him to kind of win the game, he's gonna do something weird. And lose it. That's his only weakness. But
kind of
now
Charlie over at Baylor. Both wore 12. Both little guys.
Yeah. So now I got to break down Van Buren. But, yeah, guys, newsflash, Mississippi State's not going to be a tough game either. I was telling the guys, what they don't tell you about having a good team is how boring the games are.
Yeah.
You know? It's like imagine Bama and Georgia, like what you get up for like the conference championship, but other than that, you're just like relaxing. I don't even know how to handle myself.
Well, that's like if you remember Saban, and now Kiffin's getting on the fans about leaving the third quarter. I was actually, that was the first game I went to this season. Fans stayed well into the third quarter, so I think there probably is some newness. Like a lot of the new Texas fans are like, "Hey, it's nice that we just handle our business and just smoke everyone we're supposed to."
Yeah, I'm used to just being like a nervous wreck, like in the 4th quarter. And now it's like halfway through the first, and I'm like, I wonder when we're putting in our third string. All right, so total defense, opponent points per game, 1st in the country right now, 7.3. Opponent plays per game, 14th. So we're not even letting people's offenses do anything. We're 3 and out in them a ton. Opponent yards per play in totality, 4th in the country. Opponent total yards per game, 3rd in the country. Defensive points per drive, are we letting offenses score? 8th in the country. Defensive success rate, are they able to move the ball in the air or on the ground versus us? 13th in the country. Are they able to get the big plays on us? 50-yard passes, 30-yard runs? Nope, 4th in the country. And then havoc. So are we getting sacks, batted balls, interceptions, PBUs, that kind of stuff? 28th in the country. So this is a good defense. Once again,
very good defense.
Yeah. And so there's not a ton to say there. You just see it last night with like Anthony Hill's interception. Like, these guys are just different. Just like if you just look at the athletes, sometimes I'm just like, man, this is a different thing that we have going on here than we've had in previous years. Just their speed, their size combination, all that stuff.
I think there's a few athletes there that could lead several teams in sacks. But like Anthony Hill is just, people need to remember like how much of a specimen that kid is. Him getting after the quarterback is scary. Like that is really fun to watch, having those kind of guys. And Simmons is one of those kind of builds too, just athletically. Bill Norton got a pass breakup yesterday. Or no, not Bill Norton. Ethan Burke got one.
Mm-hmm.
Burke was getting more first team reps yesterday again.
Yeah.
Which was nice to see. I mean, that was just we had LaFoe get a little sack there. I mean, they've got some depth there when everyone's playing right. They've got the size. There's no problem there. Vernon Broughton looked good. He was moving a little bit after the quarterback on some plays.
And they had like restraint. Like there were several times that a dumb team would have like smacked the quarterback right after, and they would just like swat the ball down and let him go. So we're also like playing with this intelligence and athleticism combination that's really impressive. Let's see. Norton continues to be stout at the point of attack. Broughton is a brawler. Sorrell is very sound. Collins makes plays when he wants to, it seems. But finally, Lole showed up. Very proud of him. Yeah, I need to individually watch the defensive line. Normally, I'll watch and then I'll watch the lines too separately, and I haven't done that yet. Because I get caught up I'm breaking down the quarterback most of the time. And so I need to watch the lines.
Well, you're saying it's more entertaining than Bill Norton?
Yeah. What are you saying, Coach?
I was saying one thing I was excited to see was they mixed the match a lot, letting a lot of young guys play. And normally in practice, those guys don't get a lot of reps together, but they still were communicating at a high level. They were still making plays, no matter who was in. Like that's when you look at that, it's like, man, this is a well-coached team from top to like bottom. Like they don't miss a beat, no matter who's in. You saw Javion Cole get in late, and he speed on the play and go get the interception. Like these dudes are being coached, man. Like they're performing and they're executing at a high level from the starters to third and fourth string. It's like, that's a culture thing, and that's very, very scary and dangerous. So, man, I love to see that. I love to see it. We're always talking about a backup guy making play like LaFau made. Like the game before that, it was Ty Anthony Smith shooting the gap. Now it's LaFau. Like the standard is the standard. No matter who's in the game, they're all performing the exact same.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a testament to like this culture Sark is building off of that Saban coaching tree, where now soon as Sark starts to establish his sort of, tradition, I don't want to go ahead and say dynasty yet because he hasn't won a title, but when he starts to build that where it's just, class after class, and it's, last year was 12-2, that was a one-off season, but that's going, the way things look with recruiting and how, they've from the turnover, they've reloaded this year. I think that'll become the standard. Is like don't be surprised if you see then a Sark coaching tree start. That's what you're saying is like it does seem like they're just well coached level by level. Like no one thinks like, oh, I can slack off now because we're up 51-3. It's like Javion Cole came in and he's like want to play hard. Silas Bolden's fighting for reps. He was getting 800 yards at Oregon State. He gets in, he wants to play hard. So sometimes maybe they press a little too much like Silas Bolden does on returns, but for the most part, it's like guys are fighting. They're buying into the culture. They want to make every single play because they're like, hey, I want to play, but also they care about the greater, the result.
Yeah, to lose 11 guys to the league and still do this next year. I hear, Michigan lost 13 and they're like, we lost a bunch of guys. I kind of stand up for them because we did lose a bunch of guys too, but we didn't lose our entire offensive line and our starting quarterback. Like that matters, So I get it. Michigan losing 13 and it was really core pieces, but it's nice to lose 11 and be better.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of lends what you're saying, James, of like when you're actually building something that can sustain for years of being good, that's what it looks like. And so let's look at the rushing defense. I know this has kind of been a point of contention amongst the fans. They did not like seeing 100-yard games for, I guess, UTSA and Colorado State in rushing defense. But once again, guys, it's all green. It's all gravy here, how we're looking. So opponent rush per game, 23, 23rd in the nation. Opponent yards per rush, they're only getting 3 yards per rush, 30th in the nation. Opponent rushing yards per game, they're averaging 88. That's 20th in the nation. Defensive rushing success rate, are people able to move the ball on us consistently? No, 22nd in the nation. Defensive line yards specifically, how is the D-line holding up against the run? 33rd in the nation. Defensive run, now this is my favorite stat. Defensive rushing power success rate. So when we know you're running and we have to go head-to-head with you and you're going to try to get 1 yard, you're not getting it. We're second in the nation.
Yeah.
And then we're capping long runs too. So 23rd in the nation in defensive rushing explosivity. So I know teams are worried about – our fans have been worried about that. And I get it too. I mean, we haven't faced the creme de la creme of rushing offenses either, right? ULM, Colorado State's a passing offense. UTSA is also a passing offense. Michigan did like to run.
Yeah,
and that's kind of our best example of like, hey, this is they were able to grind down USC, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably a good rushing offense, but we're going to see more rushing offenses in SEC play than we're going to see elite passing offenses because we're not playing Ole Miss, we're not playing Tennessee, that kind of stuff. So we'll see, but rushing defense, I thought we'd look solid. Coach, have you noticed any gap integrity issues? I mean, besides like a UTSA 50-yarder?
I wouldn't say gap integrity because I don't know what the call is or what's been taught sometimes, but I do see some guys like I'm taking off and getting their field this play, right? And sometimes nobody's been able to kind of make them pay when they do this, but I see them like being over aggressive. Like they're one gapping and I'm shooting this gap and I'm gonna create havoc in the backfield. And it could be called. It could be a call because we didn't see much of it last year. So maybe I'm just basing on what I saw last year, where we kind of two gap, but we had two guys who could two gap. So it's a little different. But sometimes I wouldn't call it integrity issues just because I don't know what the call is and if they're allowed to kind of get vertical and be aggressive and attack that way. But maybe I don't see any issues. Man, linebackers fit really well off the defensive line, and I can tell. There's, like I said, it's communication again. If a guy D-line takes out the C gap, that linebacker already knows, well, I got B gap, right? Like they're communicating and playing off of each other, where you wouldn't see that in years past. Both guys would take the C gap and then running back have a lane to cut back, and nobody would be home, right?
Right.
So you're starting to see like the front level and the second level kind of play together, even when they do shoot the gap. So I would say there's language gap integrity or lack thereof. I think that they're just playing and getting out there. Like, meet me in the backfield, meet me at the football, right? And I think that's a lot of times we're seeing that. They're creating havoc. So as long as they're making plays, I don't think coaches are going to complain too much unless they're doing something they're not coached to do, and then it costs you later on down the road. You know what I mean? So I guess we'll see as they play tougher opponents, though.
Yeah, and I've loved Benda's play, man. There's a couple times a game where, I mean, his closing speed is really remarkable, you know, especially when you're being compared to Anthony Hill. Like, both of those guys will get up on you quick, man, and smack you. David Keith Williams. It's very significant that defense is up to 15 or more players that often don't necessarily fill the stat sheet with dominant plays, but they make dominant plays when they have the opportunity. Yeah, it's been team defense.
Yeah.
And that's what's been cool. I don't feel like there's one guy that I'm constantly having to call their name and they're, you know, basically running it. It's Ethan Burke makes a play here. Vernon Broughton makes a play here. Benda makes a nice tackle. Then we get an interception in the secondary. You know? So it's like, it does feel like it's all over the place, which I think is the mark of actually a really good team. And all those guys, man, there's so many like special athletes on there. They kind of all balance out. In the past, it's like we've had a bunch of like, you know, good athletes and then one elite guy. The elite guy is going to stand out. But when everyone's, you know, NFL caliber athleticism, it's pretty nice.
Yep.
Is the rush defense a bit softer because our opponents are playing from multiple scores behind? When it matters on third downs, they can't run. We're probably happy to let you run the clock out. I mean, yeah, there's not a ton of motivation, right? I mean, right here, look at this. Third down defense, we're 5th in the country.
Yeah.
So like I said, situationally, like when we need to make something happen, we make it happen. We're number 1 in the nation in red zone D. So it's like we kind of do like we're like, yeah, man, at the 50-yard line, you can get 4 yards a carry. We don't care. And then, okay, you're in the red zone now. All right, now we're not playing around. And then you got to kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then also, too, I mean, the reality is we like to act like players are machines and they care equally throughout the game. They're going to start to slack when you're up 40 to 3, you know? And so it's like, yeah, they're going to let them run a little bit more. So, yeah, I think that's a good point that you made that, you know, I want to see versus Michigan. When they wanted to run, we didn't let them. Let's see it versus Georgia.
Right.
I think we do let them kind of gain some ground versus these teams that we're like, all right, it's not really a big deal. Passing defense. And then coach, you get out of here in like what, 5?
Yeah.
Coach got to hit the airport.
Yeah, look, pass defense. I continue to see it. And you know what's funny? Barron got called for what he called snap infraction. He was trying to communicate like, hey, get over here. They're making an emphasis on communication in that back end. It's like second to none. I can hear them through the TV screen. They're really aware of what the offenses are doing. Like, they're so dialed in that back end. There's no communication. There's no coverage bust. No lack of communication. Like, they are playing well as a unit, man, in the secondary. And you see the linebackers starting to play the passing lanes pretty well now. Besides, you know, you may got a few where you kind of receiver, tight end gets in the middle of at sticks and nobody takes them. But for the most part, like, the whole back end's playing very well. And then they're coming up and hitting. I know me and you did a video of Michael Taft come up hitting. Like, that's no surprise to me. Yeah. That's what he does. Like, he is just a ball player. And so just to see that, man, those guys are playing with so much confidence on the back end. And it's a complete defense. It's a complete team. like I don't see any weaknesses or holes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And when they're not having any mental breakdowns or busts, that makes them even harder to beat. So
Yeah.
I'm extremely happy right now with the secondary, man. They're playing lights out, if you ask me.
All right, good stuff. Coach, get out of here. Go get your flight. Have a safe journey, man.
Coach,
Peace.
All right.
Yeah, James, what I think is funny is like you see Muhammad like once a game, and he's just like locking down a wide receiver. And it's like it's so boring. It used to be when the ball would be in the air last season. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, because that's even I think following, and I'm sure for a long time, such as yourself, like last year almost felt like because even a lot of those games, like Iowa State, and a lot of those games were grinded out. Like they didn't pull away like it looks like they can do in a lot of the easier conference games this year. And now it's gotten to the point where it's like they cover all their bases. Like any leaks, so to speak, in the ship last year with the red zone efficiency, the secondary being 90th in pass efficiency last year. It seems like they've kind of like what we were talking about, just well balanced, well oiled machine where it's no one on defense is popping like, oh yeah, this guy is the leader of the defense. It's kind of like there's 5 to 7 guys who can go get a sack.
There's also not a liability where you're like, if they target him, we're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
That penalty for clapping needs to be reworked. If you're trying to get a player's attention, they should let it go. They can't because quarterbacks are clapping to do the snap. So if you clap on defense, you're mistiming the snap. So that's the reality of it, is that if we didn't have quarterbacks clapping to get the ball, you'd be able to clap. But the center can't see the quarterback. So they're waiting for that sound. So if you simulate that snap, it's a cheap way to basically get the quarterback to fumble. So they have to actually police that, even though it is pretty annoying. Curious how Trey Moore is grading overall. I'll look that up for you real quick. That's our only red thing on all of defense is sacks per game. I mean, this is the Texas defense, y'all. I mean, everything is green to deep green. And then the only problem is sacks per game at 2. James, while I'm pulling it up, kind of how are you feeling about Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, the pressures versus sacks argument that's kind of been going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of frustrating to hear fans say like, oh, well, sacks don't matter if we're getting pressures. But, pressures should be leading to more sacks. I think that is the one thing that needs to step up. Like Trey Moore, yeah, he hasn't done bad. We'll see I haven't looked at his efficiency rating. His stats on paper, like general stats, haven't been, he hasn't gotten a sack yet. But I would like to see Trey Moore be the game breaker, so to speak, that we heard he was going to be in fall camp over the summer. And he just hasn't quite been that yet. I don't know if it's the jump in competition. I mean, we're about to go in SEC play, as Wayne says here. Like, it's going to be interesting to see. I think Colin Simmons is more of a specimen than Trey Moore for sure. He's more.
Well, yeah.
I think Colin Simmons will be able to create more pressures and hurries, and even in SEC play. I mean, I think I don't worry about guys like Anthony Hill or Simmons going into play. I mean, we'll see how Trey Moore, if he's able to be an impact player on the edge as we start facing a little more, stout lines in the SEC. We'll probably find out in Red River. I would assume first real.
Yeah. Well, that's the tricky part, right? Because the basic logic is like, well, we just played inferior competition. Wouldn't Trey Moore show up more likely there?
Exactly.
But, which is a good point. But on the flip side is those teams didn't dare to do a lot of drop back versus us. I mean, they had to because they were in 3rd and 15s a lot, but strategy wise, they weren't going to sit there and let us tee off. So hopefully we get to see more confident teams that are not so scared of Texas. They do drop back, and that'll help Trey. But on the flip side, again, we don't see a lot of elite passing offenses at all in the schedule.
Yeah.
Tennessee and Ole Miss are going to be like, try us. We'll drop back and pass against you. But there's not a lot of those.
You either.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're saying. Like there isn't really an opportunity for them to pin their ears back and let the pass rushers work. Because the Colorado State's trying to dump us. Michigan wasn't even trying to. I mean, that was their pass game was a mess. And then Oklahoma, I would be surprised if we see a few sacks on Arnold, just because it seems like everybody. Well, or
if he stays in,
if Hawkins is playing. But like you're saying, there's not a ton of opportunities where we're going to see teams airing it out. We don't get an LSU coming to town. We don't get to play an Ole Miss or Tennessee. So that might be one of those things where it's like on paper, okay, we're 83rd in sacks, but it's still when they need to. I mean, Georgia will probably try and pass it a little more, I think, confidently than the other teams. Like they're going to be able to run their actual game plan, which is pretty balanced typically.
Yeah, and we're only seeing, about 30 pass attempts per game anyways. And how many of those are going to be true drop back? Very little. Most
Well, yeah,
passes we see.
Four yards per pass. I mean, that's basically,
Yeah.
air grade numbers right
Well,
there.
60 to 70% of your pass game is going to be like quick game. You're not even going to have a chance.
Yeah, to get after the quarterback.
But Colin, so here's the actual grades, y'all. So this is SEC edges pass rushing. Our number one edge is Colin Simmons. He's ranked 11th. Our number 2 edge is Ethan Burke. He's ranked 16th. Our number 3 edge is Trey Moore, and he's ranked 32nd. Our number 4 edge is Barron Terrell. He's 42nd out of, 65 total. So Colin Simmons, total pressures right now, he's sitting at 11 total pressures. 2 of those are sacks. 9 are quarterback hurries. Trey Moore right now has 4 pressures. All of the pressures are hurries. So the argument is this too, right? Like, well, if you're saying, Homer, that we're not getting opportunities on the quarterback, why is Colin Simmons getting sacks? So that's where you would kind of beat me in that conversation. And so, I mean, in this argument that like pressures and sacks are mutually exclusive, they're not. Most teams that get a lot of pressures get a lot of sacks, So it's also that it's kind of that thing too. So all we're saying is it'd be super cool if everything was green. That's all.
And like you said earlier, like you look at most teams, even most ranked teams, their analytics are going to show up, like a Christmas tree, red and green. Like, it's going to be a little bit of here, like Texas last year, still able to go 12-2, had a horrible secondary, and there was probably a lot more red on last year's chart, I would imagine. But that's like the one thing we'd like to see. Hey, maybe a few of those hurries and pressures just turn into more outright sacks. And I think Colin Simmons will probably be that guy. I would think. I mean, I still kind of think he's going to lead the team in sacks by season's end. I think he's the guy who can.
Yeah, to be doing that as a freshman, man.
Yeah, he's going to be probably another 3-year guy. Like he's just absolute monster.
Yeah. David Keith Williams. I noticed Jahdae Barron was lined up in the middle of the defense like a middle linebacker or a rover on numerous instances last night. Did you notice that? What's your take on that? I haven't studied it enough. I'm going to look at it. I have to go through and do my individual position groups. So I'll look at that. But that is interesting. And David, it wasn't in our dime, right, where he kind of plays that linebacker role. You're saying he's actually – just tell me if you saw it in our dime. Because if so, he does play linebacker in our dime. That'd be interesting. All right. And then let's look. Situationally, like we said, 5th in the nation, 4th down D, all that kind of stuff. Elite again.
Yeah. Red zone D first that's great.
Yeah. So there's really no issues here. 9th in interceptions per game.
Yeah, those DBs are flying all over the field.
Yeah.
Like whoever's put in there is just ball hawking. Like it was nice seeing Jay on Cole get involved. It was, Michael Taft laid someone out, almost got a targeting call. Like those guys they're flying to the ball. They know their coverages. They're talking well. Yeah, I mean the secondary's improvement is probably the story of the defense this year. I would say for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Might have actually been the dime. Yeah, I'll check it out because normally, he does play that linebacker role. Y'all remember preseason? Somebody asked him at a presser, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been playing nickel, corner, and even some linebacker." And we thought he was joking, but he's not joking. In the dime, he does have a linebacker look. So, looking forward, we're not really going to see the answer here versus Mississippi State. We should win that game. What did we open up as?
30.5 point favorites, I believe.
Yeah, that's crazy. 30+ opening in the SEC.
Yeah, 5 touchdowns, favorites in an SEC game.
Yeah, and then we'll see if Quinn comes back, right? I think he does.
You think he'll come back against Mississippi State?
Yeah.
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 He'd probably need a good tune-up game before going into Red River for sure.
Yeah, because I get resting him.
Mm-hmm.
And, he rested before that OU game 2 years ago, right? And he came out on fire. So I'm not really worried about Quinn being rusty. He's shown that several times when he comes back from injury. He's dialed in. But I would just for his campaign too, right? There's a little bit of selfishness for him where I'm like, hey man, get your numbers up. You're a good quarterback. Like,
like Jackson Dart's been pumping his stats up in their first few games, like because I hope Quinn doesn't miss a couple games and that hurts his Heisman race, because I genuinely believe that like he's the best passer in football right now. I mean, I just like they've ostensibly got like an NFL quarterback back there.
Well, especially to see Riley's offense, what an incredible offense, not be able to do what Sark's offense.
I know, that's what Nessler and Danielson were talking on the broadcast, about Sark and some of the other, Kiffin's, this kind of new era, these best like scheming offensive minds. And I was like, well, it seemed really, really easy for Sarkisian. Now, granted, we have a couple more layers of depth. USC's ones are, not quite at our level, but they are competitive with their ones are some of the best in the Big Ten. But it was not easy for them to move the ball. I mean, up until the second half, they could not throw the ball at all. They couldn't run the ball. Oh, shoot, I can't remember. In the first half, they didn't even have like 20 yards rushing. So it's like to see like Sark go up against Michigan's defense versus Riley, and we forget that just recently Texas dominated the Big 12 for a few years there. Like was the playoff every single year with Oklahoma. Yeah. So it is nice to see Sark has kind of ascended. I think it's like Sark and Kiffin are the two best offensive minds right now, and especially of the Saban coaching tree, those guys.
I hope national media also kind of picks it, because even last year this would bother me. They always talk about Sarkisian's offense. Mm-hmm. The Texas defense was markedly better than the Texas offense last year. So it's like I want the national media to catch up to like, y'all need to start talking about PK too.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I like PK, but that was a huge hire when they got him, and then it felt like he kind of fell into the shadow. Like nobody really talked about it until. And now it's like this defense is giving up 5 points a game or like 6 points.
And he's been doing that, man. That's the thing too. Like at Washington, he's been like it's because he's low key, a quiet guy. But I mean, go look at his defenses. Yeah.
Vita Vea and those that when Washington made the playoff, that was like that, he's a great defensive coordinator. Like what a great hire from Sark. Like that's the thing we were just talking about, just the culture where it feels like 1 through 3, everybody knows what they're doing, and it's not like, oh shoot, I'm in now, we're up 40. No, it's like I'm going in. I know how to communicate. I'm still carrying myself like a 1, because when you're on a team as loaded as this one, everybody's fighting for playing time. They want to get in there as 2s and 3s. They're just happy to be playing on a team that's good, right? And you kind of have that culture where it's just about winning. But yeah, the defense communication is great. I think he made a great hire, and it's kind of contributed to that trickle down of the culture where just everybody knows what they're doing. The communication's great. And it's, great hires are how, these sort of dynasties, these elite teams stay. When we saw Saban kind of trickle off at the end, in the past few years, still obviously elite, not losing more than 2 games. But when Saban started losing some of those games or not blowing out teams with Bryce Young in that last little era of Saban, it was because he lost all his coordinators. Like all of his coordinators started leaving. And I think Sark is starting to build that up where he's getting those great coordinators, because this is just the beginning of like Sark's era. So
his hires have been awesome. The only one that was bad was keeping Coleman. That was it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, think about it. Brendan Marion at wide receiver, he goes on to UNLV. He's going to be balling out for years to come.
Oh, yeah. UNLV looks good now. Their offense looks great.
Yeah, and he's going to be a Power 5 coordinator and then a head coach.
Yeah.
And then Choate, goes on to be a head coach in Nevada. Like, these hires have been awesome. Deshard Choice was probably the best new hire that he had made. So it's the hiring. And I think PK too, we don't talk about enough, the lack of ego. I mean, you let Gary Patterson come in. That's kind of scary, man. He didn't care. Securing himself, awesome stuff. Then you bring in Nansen. You're able to do this kind of stuff. And he chose Choate, which is clearly head coach. He's a head coach now. So it's like PK just has this like lack of ego that's really remarkable in coordinators, because most coaches have insane egos.
Oh, I know. It's just their stubbornness is what ends up killing them in the end. Like guys like Jimbo and Dabo right now. But I think, PK seems content being a coordinator, operating the shadows, running a great defense. I mean, they're getting better year in after year in. Like we were talking about earlier, like blown secondaries and blown coverages in the secondary. That was like kind of a staple of the 2010s for Texas. That was guys being misaligned, guys running into each other. busted plays. It's just, yeah, because they fully were in that, like, Texas was a part of that air raid where they were in the Big 12, where, in the David Ash era, even where Mac Brown's defenses took a step back and they just fully went into we're in a 48-45 game. And now it's like, no, we're in a 48-6 game against Mississippi State or whoever.
Yeah. And PK was known for shutting down the air raid when he was in the Pac-12. So, yeah, but Sark's, of course, incredible, and he gets all the praise as a coordinator. He's elite. But the national media needs to start talking about PK elite too, because the numbers bear that out for over a decade.
Yeah.
Boise State, Washington, and now Texas. He's done it at 3 different places, at 3 different skill levels, with different coaching staff, all that kind of stuff. Who's the common denominator here? It's PK.
Yeah.
So it's like people need to do their research and start putting more respect on PK.
Yeah. Well, I think when they finally, no jinxing involved here, but when they finally break through the national championship barrier, I think that's when you'll start to hear him talked about, similar to like a Brent Venables. Because when Texas when people, around the country fully grasp with the fact that, like, oh, Texas is in this Georgia, Alabama caliber again, the Ohio State, they'll start talking about guys like PK, and they'll look into the program and be like, oh yeah, we should be talking about him the way we were talking about Dabo, and we should be talking about Venable or him like Venables. So I think it's kind of, because it's still new, it's like 2 years ago, they were 8-5 2 years ago. So this is year 2 of, it's still, we don't want to call it yet, but it's still very fresh. It's still the nervousness in you is like, I think last year, definitely, I thought like they would lose a game to like Iowa State and stuff like that. You still felt that. And now it's like, all right, so far, so they handle their business and they look, So I think when they get a little more national acclaim, we'll see, like with the Georgia game, I think PK will start to, they win a game like that, he'll start to get his due for sure nationally.
Yeah. Well, his numbers back it up. All right, man. Well, we went through the Texas offense, Texas defense. That's what we thought of non-conference. Like we said, the big takeaway here, I mean, you don't need to have a PhD in football to know that this is just a really good football team. And they're going to continue to be good. But like we said, this has been pretty light work of a non-conference.
Yeah.
First SEC game is pretty light as well. Georgia's really the test here, guys. I mean, OU is going to be a test purely as a rival, but not statistically. They're not going to be a test. Same with A&M. They were fighting for their life versus Bowling Green. They're going to be tough because they're a rival, but
same. I would say like Arkansas, A&M, OU. The only thing you'd be worried about those games is purely the rival factor and the road with Arkansas. Like when you look at how we played against Michigan, I mean, that game should have been, that game could have been 42-6.
But also Quinn in away games is crazy, dude. Like I trust Quinn on the road more than I trust him at home.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like the last time we went into Fayetteville, like when Hudson Card, and they're just purely overwhelmed, like just by I mean, yeah, he went into the big house and it was just, the first we saw that was Alabama, but like, Sark will game plan his tail off. Like, I wouldn't, the only game purely, like when you look at it, if you say, all right, Texas is playing great, how they should, the only game purely, like you said, that they could straight up lose is Georgia. And we'll see. I personally think we have more weapons than Georgia.
We do, as far as talent.
I mean, yeah, the only thing would be how are we going to run the ball, that kind of stuff. How are they going to move the ball on us? But yeah, I mean, it's a good year to be a Texas fan for sure.
Yeah. We'll end on this. As a great play caller as Coach Sark is, I think he's evolving into a great head coach. There are assistants he has that he needs to retain, though. I wonder if money will be enough to keep them. That's what I've noticed, too, with Sark. I mean, he's become a real GM. Yeah, we pay attention to the recruiting stuff and Inside Texas. That's the bread and butter. I mean, what he's doing behind the scenes, he's a real program builder. He's making good hires. He is retaining guys. Of course, we want to keep Flood and all the Banks and all those guys, but he's kept them for 4 years. I mean, we're kind of asking, that's not even normal. To have the coordinators for this long is rare. Normally they get poached. Luckily, there's no kind of higher level to be poached to, I guess, the league, right? But that's it. But what Sark's doing behind the scenes is also incredible because we think about like being a head coach is tough. You have to deal with your players and coaches. No, he doesn't. He has entire personnel staffs. He has nutrition staffs he has to manage. I mean, you're running a real organization. You're a legit.
He's like a CEO pretty much, and that's what made Saban's so good. Is part of it is just he knew who the right guy is. Right, he knows the right guy. He knows, all right, this guy has to mesh with my culture, what I'm trying to build. And then that guy could just run, that entire part of the team on his own. Yeah. And that's so he's just got a lot of the right guys running recruiting, a lot of the right guys running the defense. Like we said, that's what people sometimes don't realize. It's pretty much like almost like different branches of a company. It's like, the defense is running the defense. Sark's doing his thing, and recruiting's its own business.
Yeah, you would be worried if he had his hands in every little thing. That micromanaging means you don't have the right hires. And so, but yeah, that's what he's done that's most impressive. I mean, we all love the sexy play calls, but it's actually his ability to run the organization that's most impressive, and building something that can be sustained. Like you said, losing 11 players and then being number one in the country. And then you're set up for next year with Arch for continued success. I mean, he's building it the real way, and he built it from the studs. Remember 5 and 7.
Yeah.
All right, James. I enjoyed it, man. I always like the day after when it's a little bit more analytical and kind of calm. I always appreciate those. Guys, we're going to be live again at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. It'll be Eric and myself, maybe Coach. I don't know. He's catching a flight. He might not be able to do it from a hotel room, but come hang out with us, guys, at 9:30 a.m. Central Time, and we will talk more Texas football and then look ahead to Mississippi State. James, fans, thank y'all. Have a good one and hook 'em.